Yeah, you know it's about to happen. Play the song.
Sailing back-to-back victories for Shane Van Gisbergen.
8 days ago, Shane Van Gisbergen had 0 Xfinity Series wins. He had the same amount of Xfinity Series wins as me. Well, now he has passed me on the all-time wins list. He's passed you watching this on the all-time wins list for the Xfinity Series, and he has 2 wins, back-to-back wins for Shane Van Gisbergen in the Xfinity Series. And once again, it did not come easy. He did lead the most laps in this week's race. He did win a stage, which is very important for the playoffs. We'll talk about that in a minute. But his second win of the season, he's for sure in the playoffs. If there were 12 winners or 13 and he was the lowest in the points, there was technically that threat. But that was still a long shot. But now with 2 wins, he was already in. But I'm talking about nothing at this point. But Shane Van Gisbergen led 32 laps today, won a stage, and won the race. No pressure this week in terms of those last few laps. Last week, Allgaier was kind of hounding him down those last couple of laps, but this week, no pressure. So let's go ahead and let's talk about this race at Sonoma Raceway. Let's talk about Sonoma. Sonoma is a 1.99 mile track, which equates to 3.203 kilometers. And something different about this track compared to last week, and this is something we talked about last week with Portland. Portland, a very flat road course, not a lot of elevation changes. Well, this week at Sonoma, much different. There's 160 feet of elevation change throughout the track, which is equivalent to 48.768 meters. I think that's the right metric conversion there to use meters. If I'm wrong, yell at me in the comments. I'm not 100% sure. I apologize. I'm a dumb American. Anyways, yes, Sonoma Raceway in California. California, the most populated state out of the 50 states in the United States of America, home to Hollywood in Southern California. And up in Northern California, we have San Francisco, which is about where this track is located, just a little bit outside of San Francisco. And this specific area where the racetrack is, Sonoma, Napa Valley, wine country, well known for their wineries, their great wine. In fact, as I speak, Shane Van Gisbergen probably taking a sip of wine. That is part of the trophy at Sonoma Raceway. You get some wine. But yes, Shane Van Gisbergen, almost a perfect weekend statistically. He got his first ever pole in a NASCAR event. He got the pole for the Xfinity Series race, and he got it pretty convincingly by almost 0.4 of a second. Now, SVG led every single lap in stage 1, but it was not as, I hate to use this word, easy. But ultimately, he had a lot of pressure behind him, but it was only one car. Ty Gibbs, a Cup Series regular right now for Joe Gibbs Racing. He was racing the Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity Series car. They qualified 1-2, and they ran 1-2 for a good chunk of this race. SVG, as I said, led all 20 laps in the opening stage and won that opening stage. And him and Ty Gibbs were 10-plus seconds ahead of the field. SVG, he was kind of accordion effect Ty Gibbs. He was doing that so Gibbs would get within half a second, then he'd fall back to 1.1, get back within half. So he never really had a shot to take the lead, but he also never fell far away to where SVG could kind of just put it in cruise control in a sense. But at the end of the stage this week, we had full operational pit stops, full normal competitive pit stops. That's the right word for it. So you could pit with 2 laps to go, and that would mean that you would more than likely, if you're SVG and Ty Gibbs, if you pit with 2 laps to go in the stage, because if it's after 2 laps to go, or I should say less than 2 laps to go in the stage, that means you get penalized. You cannot pit during that time. But with SVG, their decision was this. You stay out and you win the stage, and you win the stage, you get a bonus point. If you win a stage in NASCAR, if you win stage 1 or stage 2, you get a playoff point. And what is this playoff point? This mysterious playoff point? Well, this playoff point goes with you to the NASCAR playoffs, which, as I just said, Shane Van Gisbergen is locked into the NASCAR Xfinity Series playoffs. And with each race win, you get 5 playoff points. So right now, Shane Van Gisbergen has 11. 10 from the 2 race wins and 1 from the stage win today. And what do those 11 playoff points do? Well, you get to carry them through the entire playoffs. So when that first round, the round of 12 starts in the playoffs, Shane Van Gisbergen will have at least 11 playoff points. Now, the other ways to gain these playoff points, as I said, winning races, winning stages, or if you finish top 10 in the regular season standings, you get some playoff points there. And Shane Van Gisbergen almost had the max points day. But obviously, I went on a side tangent to explain the playoff points to you. But the big thing at the end of stage one, the decision to win the stage or track position. And ultimately, Bruce Schlicker and team decided to stay out and take the playoff point, which ended up paying off at the end. And Shane Van Gisbergen pitted during the stage break, but Ty Gibbs had opted to pit with 2 laps to go in the stage, meaning that he would get the race lead to start stage 2. So now Shane Van Gisbergen started around 8th on the following restart, and he was quickly able to make his way back into the top 5 as he was in 5th by the time they had made a complete circuit. And he slowly made his way back up to 2nd. He was up to 4th, 3rd, and he got back up to 2nd with about 7 or so to go in the stage, I want to say. And he ended up finishing 2nd in stage 2, and all but a handful of drivers ended up actually staying out. I thought it would have been a more split decision, but only 4 or 5 guys opted to do the pit with 2 to go in the stage and then come back out as the leaders. And so SVG, got 9 stage points. He did not get a playoff point for that, though, but the regular season points carried a lot today. They carried a lot of value when we look at the standings if we get those in time. But ultimately, SVG came out of this thing starting stage 3 in 6th place. And this is where we had a big moment in this race. I just mentioned to you, Ty Gibbs was Shane Van Gisbergen's biggest competition today. When SVG was able to gap the field by 10 seconds, while Ty Gibbs was right there within a second of him, challenging him, fighting him, putting some pressure on him, not making it easy for Shane Van Gisbergen. Well, Ty Gibbs at the end of stage 2 had a really bad pit stop. The left rear, there was some issue there. He was pinned into his box. A lot of things went wrong. And Ty Gibbs lost 10 plus positions on pit road. He went from the lead to mid-pack, and restarts, everyone's all clumped together. Anything can happen, but it doesn't always happen. Well, this time it happened, and it took out a good chunk of the field. 15, 16 cars were involved in a restart crash. Chandler Smith got turned around, who got turned into someone else, and everyone started piling into each other, and that clipped Ty Gibbs, the second best or arguably the best car today, and Ty Gibbs was done. His car was destroyed. He did a little burnout and kind of damaged his teammate a little more in the process, but the teammate came back to have a good finish, Chandler Smith. We'll talk about that. And at this point, SVG was in 4th. And the question at this point was, could everyone make it on fuel? The fuel window was about 35 laps. We restarted this thing with about, 37 to go. Could everyone make it? Well, because the crash was big and there was a lot of damage and scattered debris and fluids leaking, it was a lengthy caution. So at this point, everyone was going to make it on fuel. And so coming up to this next restart with about, let's call it 26, 27 laps to go, well, SVG started 4th, or restarted in the 4th position, was able to make his way back up into 3rd. And SVG was able to get up to 2nd just a couple laps later, had to use up his teammate AJ Allmendinger just a little bit. Allmendinger did not seem happy about it, and I would say understandably so. It is a teammate that is passing you, and he did use him up just a little bit. But it was nothing egregious. And then SVG had to chase down his old buddy, Austin Hill. We all remember Austin Hill from COTA. Of course, Austin Hill did the bump and run on SVG with 2 to go at COTA, or later at that late race restart. SVG coming through the final sector of the track. He tried to bump and run Austin Hill. It went terribly wrong, and Kyle Larson took the win from both of them. So SVG's had the better car. He's got 3-4 laps, fresher tires. Surely he'll blow by him. No. Actually, Austin Hill held his own very strong. Sonoma, a difficult track to pass on, but SVG taking his time. But Austin Hill held him off for a good amount of time, and then there was a caution with 13, 14 laps to go because Jesse Love spun out. It made no sense. It was a normal spin out. He got it back going again, and it's a road course, but NASCAR threw a caution. I was very confused to why they threw the caution, but that's not a debate for today. And then we go to the next restart. And, it got freaky. 11 laps to go at Sonoma. Shane Van Gisbergen on the outside of turn 1. Austin Hill on the inside. But when you come back to turns 2 and 3, let's just say SVG would have the inside line if he could hold his own. He held his own, and he sent it. And Austin Hill also pinched him off a little bit. SVG got in the dirt, door slammed him. Austin Hill went wide. SVG got into the lead, and he ran away with the win. That is ultimately what happened. As for that late race incident, they do have history. Now, it's not as bad as some other drivers in the field's history, like Sam Mayer and Ty Gibbs. But, SVG sent it for sure. He knew how difficult it was to pass. And, you're going uphill. You've got a little bit of help on the braking. And, he was aggressive. And I don't think he would have made that corner because when he clipped the dirt, he was kind of sliding. But at the same time, once again, Austin Hill did kind of pinch him down onto the curb into the dirt. So if I'm Austin Hill, I think regardless in that situation, I'm mad because I'm fighting for a win and I get shipped off a little bit. But it was nothing egregious. It was nothing terrible. It was NASCAR racing at its finest. It wasn't even a bump and run. It was just getting doored. And, Austin Hill, I'm sure he felt done dirty in a sense. Austin Hill, after the race, did not want to say anything. He pled the Fifth Amendment, which is, not self-incriminating yourself. And, he also said he didn't want to trigger the keyboard warriors. I guess, do I count as that? If I do, I'm not triggered, Austin Hill. It's okay, man. But no, for real, Austin Hill, as I said, you get bumped out of the way for a win. You're going to be a little bit mad, and it's understandable. But ultimately, it's for a win at the same time. It's for playoff points. It's for a trophy. And SVG, he didn't completely wreck him. He didn't completely junk him. Austin Hill fell back to 7th or 8th, and he was able to recover to 5th. So good points day still for Austin Hill. It's not like he got junked, finished 23rd, and lost all those points. But ultimately, once again, I think I understand why Austin Hill is mad. He has a right to be a little bit mad. And if SVG gets one back next week or in a couple weeks, then all right, understandable, depending on what he does. But ultimately, Shane Van Gisbergen, back-to-back wins in the Xfinity Series. Once again, 11 playoff points to his name. That is very important in September when the playoffs start. And I will do some sort of playoff preview for Shane Van Gisbergen, talking about his playoff hopes. I will explain the format that I don't want to manipulate your opinion on, so I won't give you what my opinion is on the playoff format. But yes, we will talk about those playoffs in a few months, but back-to-back wins for Shane Van Gisbergen. Other notable finishers, another runner-up finish for Sheldon Creed. He's really good at that. Austin Green with the top 5, great run for him. He finished top 10 at COTA. Austin Hill once again led 21 laps in this race, held his own strong, got bumped out of the way there late, finishes 5th. AJ Allmendinger was running top 5 most of this race, got spun out late, wasn't a caution for some reason. If we're going to call the Jesse Love thing a caution, that made no sense. He finishes 17th. Boris said finished 28th. He was running top 20 for a bit. Not sure what happened there at the end, but said heads get loud. And then we had a bunch of DNFs from the crash. But Shane Van Gisbergen did punt a rugby ball. Again, he's got a pretty good leg. I don't know why I was expecting him to shank it one of these times, but I just don't know anything. But yes, Shane Van Gisbergen in the playoffs. He was already in the playoffs, but back-to-back wins. First win with WeatherTech. Big day for that team. And it had a couple of scares somewhere in there. At the end of stage 2, I forgot to mention this, but the crew chief had actually said he was focused on Ty Gibbs because Ty Gibbs was leading. They wanted to do opposite, but ultimately it just didn't work out. There's a miscommunication, but it all worked out at the end of the day. But Shane Van Gisbergen, we all expected him to be really good at these road courses, and once again, he's done really good at these road courses. Still learning the ovals, and he said it post-race. He said, we expect to win at the road courses, but one of these days I want to be good enough to win at the ovals. So Shane Van Gisbergen, we'll see what happens next week at Iowa. I don't know how this affects Australian and New Zealand TV, but we switched from the Fox broadcasting part of the season. We are now on the NBC part of the season. So NBC, USA Network, I don't know how that works in Australia and New Zealand, but just know there's a network change. There'll be a commentator change of some sort. So just thought I should let you know that. But Shane Van Gisbergen, back-to-back wins in the Xfinity Series. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. We got Will Brown, we got Cam Waters in the NASCAR Cup Series tomorrow. So I'll talk about them. I'll talk about the Cup Series race tomorrow. It'll be a good time. Looking forward to it. So thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day, morning, or night, wherever you may be.